Okay, hey, welcome back to Rich Fisher Art, painting stuff and things. We're going to get back on this fall painting. I can see where it's been sitting for a couple of days. I've had some other paintings I had to get done, so my palette is just a little bit on the messy side, but fine. Scrape everything off over to one side and you're good to go. Today, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here and just kind of wipe out some of these Conte pencil marks. So I'm not trying to paint over them and leaving some stuff in the painting I don't want. Get rid of those lines real quick. And then after that, what I'm going to do is come down here to my palette. I'm going to grab some burnt umber. I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue. A little more blue. I need black is what I'm after. Grab a touch of purple and just mix this up real quick. And you'll see here in a second, I'm just going to grab some of that crap I had left from the last painting. And I have got a pretty good black. Now this one is a little bit on the brown side, which for me works in what I need to do here. Sometimes I'll make it on the blue side, sometimes I'll make it on the brown side. But today, I made it a little bit on the brown side. What I'm gonna do, probably gonna take my number, what is this? I'm pretty sure this is a number 3 bristle brush. Slightly been worn down quite a bit, but that's kind of what I want. And what I'm gonna do, and see, I get pieces of dust all over the canvas. Let me clip this so it doesn't make a lot of noise. I had that issue I noticed on the last video I did of my painting rattling around. So I'll just need a clip of some sort here. And that'll work. It'll be in the way, but I'm not painting up there anyway, so hopefully that'll keep it from rattling around. What I'm going to do is come down here to this black that I just made. I'm going to get a real loose mixture of this black. And what I want to do is come down and get these dark areas just darker. What happens when you do this, it just richens up the painting. So I'm going to jump in here, take a look at my reference photo. So you can check that out. That's kind of cool. It makes that piece of corn pop out. And I'm just going to scrub some of this in. I don't want any defined line on it, but you can see now how the contrast starts to make that dark, and that'll work for later. Where else do we have? We have darkness underneath this pumpkin a little bit, in between these, where that's sitting down. Pull a little bit up in the pumpkin, that's fine. And see how it softens that edge right there. Dry that out and kind of feather that over. And grab a little bit more. I'm going to kind of pull this up into the pumpkin a little bit. I don't want to cover it completely, but that is definitely because of the contour of the pumpkin. It's definitely a little bit darker. Smudge it with my finger. And then in between the vegetables here, I see just dark, dark, dark. So I'm going to darken that up, except for the edge of that wood. And I see some dark down here, but I kind of painted it a little bit different. That's fine. Get some shadows behind what you've got going, and it just helps make the painting pop out a little bit more. will add brightness, and we'll come back and probably add a little more of that dark to it later. Let's take a look here. Behind some of these grapes is pretty dark, just from cast shadowing. And I think I will let that go. I'm going to come in here to my post and clean this up where I just wiped that Conte pencil off. Get that back to dark. And we'll use this dark later to add some detail to the wood too. Let's see how that goes in here. Just get the dark back. Good. All right. Now the grass in the background, I'm not super stoked about, but I can live with it. What we will do, what we can do, is maybe we'll add some flowers later, but for right now, I'm just going to start working on this. I'm going to put a rusty band on this bucket. So I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber, a touch of cad red on the loose side, and I'm just going to freehand in a rusty, I'm just going to follow the contour of the bucket. They always have a band that kind of holds the bucket together. If you've ever seen them make like whiskey barrels or wine barrels, it's pretty cool how they use the burnt pieces of wood and then shape them and put these metal ribs around them. I think it's cool anyway. And then here, I'll grab a little bit of, wipe my brush out. I want to, well, I've got this going on, and there I go, moving it so it's going to shake. Got it. Still, this is my number 4 flat Sable. Sorry if I didn't mention what that was. I'm just going to add some dark. And I can see here is a real good opportunity. I can see a piece of wood and then put a little bit of black in between that. This is some of the detail work. I see another area for where the bucket is just looks like it's coming apart. To make it look old is what I'm after. And when you put the highlights on, boom, you got something really cool looking. And now I took what was my store-bought bucket and turned it into just an old used farm bucket. Let's bring this line up here, bring another one down. Cool. And that is about all. Well, I'll do one more little bit right there with that. I got that line coming there, so I'll just put a little line right here, a little line there, just to show like the slats in the bucket. That's all I'm after. Okay. And when we highlight later, it'll make sense, hopefully. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to jump back to the back. I want this to be a little bit brighter. Hang on one sec. Let's get back to that rusty bucket part. This is going to be backlit. There will be a certain type of a highlight on here, but I can see where, all right, that works. And this is going to be raised up a little bit over the bucket. There we go. That makes more sense in my eyeball. All right, I'm going to put that down for a sec. I'm going to come back and grab that number 3 Sable brush. I'm going to jump on the pumpkin. I'm going to start getting these things ramped up. I'm going to take just pure cad orange. I'm going to take a touch of gesso, and the touch of gesso is just to opaque the color here. And not being able to move that, just feather that, soften that edge. Don't want to lose it. Definitely want to soften it. We got a little bit more coming in here. And it might take a couple of coats on this orange to get it super bright. It will. I can see that already. No worries. And I will squeeze that paint out and just attempt to soften so it doesn't look like I have bad lines or the angle of the paintbrush that it was going in. Just going to soften, and it starts to get to a point where it's drying a little bit, and that's when I come back and do this kind of stuff to it. Just to make it look smooth and soft. And then you can start playing with the, I don't want black. I want to kind of, I'm just hazing over the black part. Just to try and kill the brush strokes of paint. Okay, it's still going to require another coat of paint, but that's fine. And then I'm going to take and dry brush in, start dry brushing in. So I'm going to grab some of that orange on my brush. I'm actually going to take and squeeze it out, but I can see from the picture that I'm using, the reference picture, there's reflected light coming off of the bucket. So I'm going to dry brush in this reflected light, which I think is very cool. Yeah, all the way down. Now you can see, you'll be able to tell why that looks, you'll see that's really cool looking cast shadow, not a cast shadow, but a cast reflection. And I am jumping back on this too soon. What's going to happen is I'm going to end up just re-emulsifying the paint, and it's going to smear somewhat. So I'll avoid doing that for a minute. The top of the pumpkin has that dry brush, a little bit of color up here. Get some paint in my brush. And I am just going to kind of just try and finish off. I don't want the choppy looking brush strokes I had up there. And we'll add a stem in there as well. I think this is a little bit brighter, so I'll just come in here and softly dry brush in reflected light. A little bit over here. Gotta get your head back sometimes and not get so close up on the painting so you don't. Might not make a whole lot of sense at the moment, but it will. And I don't like the dark right down the middle there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of this orange. I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue. A little more orange. A little more blue. A little more blue. Just a touch of purple. That's a really good shadow color. I'm going to come back in here and fill in. I didn't ever figure out what these are called, but the accordion spines, we'll call them. I don't want black. And again, I might mess this up, and I hope, in case I do, fine. That just means that it gives me more to help you understand how to fix paintings. That's the biggest problem. I see people give up and cave in because they get frustrated with making a mistake, but making mistakes with acrylic paint is pretty simple to work with. You can do a lot to fix these quickly. And I just grabbed a little bit more of that same color to kind of give a little bit of color to the dark side of the pumpkin, Luke. That's the second coat. We'll jump back one more before we hop out of the session today. We want to get it to the point where we can put the final highlights on. So now I'm going to grab in that color, that orange color I had, I'm going to grab some yellow, touch more gesso. I want to brighten up that gourd. Don't forget, I'm calling that a gourd, and I'm calling the other one a pumpkin. I need more paint than that. So yellow, and I got too much. That orange will get away from you like purple. So let me grab a paper towel. Let me grab some more yellow, come back in here. I want a nice kind of a yellow cast. Grab some gesso. And you could use other brushes too. I just like using my Sable brushes for stuff like this. Okay. Same thing, I'm just gonna kind of contour. And then when my brush, when that paint starts to go off a little bit on the canvas, I'll come back and dry brush blend that color in. It could be a little oranger. So I can see, yeah, I can see a little bit of orange in that too. That's kind of cool. Okay, squeeze my brush out, come back in here and just kind of feather, smush it all together, try and get rid of the black. And I see reflected orange from the pumpkin, so I'll grab some of the orange, a little bit of that purple with the orange, and come over here. And that is where the pumpkin it's sitting next to is reflecting its orange light onto the gourd. See what I did? I got paint on my finger and now it's up on my canvas. Real easy thing to do is just put a little water on your paper towel, wipe it away, it's gone. So let's keep that going because there's still going to be like this bluish purple backlight coming in here too. So that's why I'm not too concerned about the backside yet. Just trying to get these intensified so we can put highlights on it. All right, I'm fairly happy with that. It could be just a little bit more paint maybe right in where the bright spot is going to be, it looks like it's, I have to cover that up. There we go. And the light is not, it's curving, it's not, it looks like it's coming straighter than that, which is fine. Okay, I like that. Now that that's dried a little bit, I'm going to jump back on that for a second. I'm going to come back and grab just the cad orange, a little bit of gesso, a little bit more gesso maybe this time, to try and get this thing opaqued up. Oh, part of my paintbrush just flew off at me. And more paint. And I can see where there's a little bit of red in that. I think maybe you can too, huh? What I'll do, get this going. Well, okay, let's take a look at that and see real quick. Grab a little bit of orange, a little bit more gesso. I'm going to grab some cad red. Maybe a little more cad red. There we go. Let's see what it looks like. If I don't like it, I'll paint over it or wipe it off. But that does richen it up a little bit, doesn't it? And bring a little bit down in there. What I'm thinking in my head is where I'm leaving the spaces for the highlight, the bright hot spots that are going to be on here. And this needs to be thick, thick, thick over here so I can see it. So I'll grab a little more paint, a little more gesso. Gets the paint heavy on the end of the brush. And I can see how the light is just hitting up here. Yeah. And then it just kind of touches that area over here. Yeah. And then when I'm going to take and squeeze all the paint out of that I can. And this looks a little redder to me too. So I'm just going to add a little bit more reflected light hitting the pumpkin from the basket. Makes sense. Okay, gourd, pumpkin, do I need to, well, that's backlight, so I'll wait on that. I'm going to come to the inside of the bucket here, rinse this out pretty decent. Grab a new paper towel and squeeze that out. And this was the burnt umber and gesso. It looks like it's got a little bit of yellow in it too. A little more gesso. Let's see how that looks. This up here is the brightest. And there is an inside lip. I'll have to paint that in later. Inside the bucket. Okay, now I'm going to tone that down with a little bit more umber, maybe a touch of purple. Touch of water. It's going to need to be brighter. I know that. I'll get to that. A little bit more color. A little bit more gesso. A little bit of water now. When you put the water in, the opacity level will start to fade away. So I don't want this to be too bright because it's kind of in its own shadow. We'll come back and brighten this up here. But there's light getting in there. And that's all I want to show. And I can actually, in my reference photo, I can see the bottom of the barrel, but the way I drew it, I can't. So what I'm going to do now, I'll show you. I'm going to grab gesso, real thick here, and maybe gesso and a touch of yellow, a little more gesso to kind of give you. I'm going to grab the other brush too, my number 4 Sable. I'm going to put some pretty thick paint on here and try and keep that on. I want to get this is bright. So we'll get that put in there. Now, I'm good with that. And what we can do at this point right now too with that same color, so it's gesso in this mix down here, touch of yellow. That's going to be the highlight color, but we can come along this rim, get that paint on there as thick as I just had it on there, and start doing this. Highlight looks like it starts like right over here. And it comes all the way down. And normally I'm saving this for last. I just kind of want to hopefully keep you intrigued enough to see where it's going. You never know. I need it sometimes just to keep things going in my own head. Verification that it looks decent enough to... There. Now that looks nice and shiny and lit up. I need to move some of this paint. It's a little bit distracting from the texture of it. But there's an inner band that goes around the bucket. I'll paint that on afterwards. But now if you stand back and look at that bucket, it's like, boom, looks good. I like it. Okay, let's get this green apple out of my way. And I am going to make this a greener apple. I'm going to take the bristle brush, the number 4 bristle brush, clean that out. I think I'm going to take the Hooker's green, some of the vivid lime green, mix those together, about like that. And then I'm going to lighten it up with some gesso. This will be it'll make it a different color from the grapes and from the corn stalk. So let's come in here. Yeah, that's better. A little more white, because there's going to be a hot spot right there. And that's a better color. But what I need to do at this point is to rotate my canvas and get my edge better. I don't like it when my brush strokes are in the motion going around a circle. It doesn't look good to me. So there, we'll do that. Now I'm going to grab and do that piece of corn in the background. And it's almost the same color, but what I'm going to do is to gray that a little bit. I'm going to grab some cad red, a little more cad red to gray that green, a little bit of gesso, a little bit more gesso there. And with the paint, I'm trying to get the paint on thicker this time. Doesn't always work out, but I'm trying to get the paint on thicker. And there. And here's a little bit of piece of the corn I can see there. I kind of like that. Get rid of some of those blobs. That's cool. There's another stalk of corn, but I'm going to take that color that I just used, grab some purple, a little more purple. There we go. I am going to try and get this. My intent is to paint some of the kernels of corn. Don't worry about hitting your apple. I think it needs a little bit of green there to showcase that. A little bit of a highlight there. And then I'll put some yellow little corn kernels maybe. We'll see. And that's the stalk. It actually comes up there. Okay. Jumping to the pepper. Gonna grab cad yellow right over here next to this orange pile I had. I'm gonna grab some gesso in the yellow to opaque it. And I'm looking at that yellow pepper. There's a lot of orange in it. I'm going to grab red, though, and add to that, just to make it different enough. A little more gesso, cad red, gesso, and I had some green mud in my brush. It's fine. Let's get some of these highlights. Let's see how that color looks. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And this might be too big of a brush. I'll come back to my Sable brush here, get the paint on thick. And mottle this in there. I can see just a touch getting in right there, which is cool. Feather. And it looks like there is, so this one goes like this, feather it back. I'm going to grab a little bit more red out of there and mix with this yellow mixture. Too much red. That one ran away from me. Touch of purple. Yeah. Let's see. Oops, that's fine. Down in here. Down here. We still got to get the core of it done. And I do want to come back to the apple color I had a minute ago, because this is actually looks like it is sitting on top of yeah. That way I can put a shadow on there. A little bit more of this yellow lightly right here to get that to feather away. And the hot spots seem to be there. Okay, I'm good with that. Let's take that center portion. I'm going to come down here and grab some Hooker's Green, a little bit of Cad Red, touch of burnt umber, and a touch of this pile of black. Because the stem portion is green overall, if you were to look at it under light. So let me get a little more green cast in. There we go. And then we can do this. And then there is a green stem highlight coming out there just a touch. Grab some of this from the apple and stick it over there. Might not be green enough. Let's try this mess. And it's got, yeah, that works for me. And then take just a touch of the, like a little pile of white sitting in my green over here. I'm just gonna put on there a little bit of a highlight so it looks like there's a stem sticking out in there. Okay. All right, jump back to that red onion. Clean out my bristle brush. And that was Alizarin Crimson, Cad Red, a little more crimson, purple, touch of purple, and now I'm going to come back here and grab some gesso. That's a great color for a red onion. And there goes my dogs. Yeah. That's going to be brightened up. So I just want to get this onion to feather away like so. And then I'm going to take some gesso in this color with a touch of yellow. And squeeze that out. Grab a little more gesso. And you got that mess of stuff going on in there, which is fun. Feather this away. Now here I will take and kind of show you what I'm talking about with the backlight. See that bluish color there? I'm going to take some of my ultramarine blue, just a touch of gesso, touch of purple, get it in my brush, and then squeeze the paint out of my brush. Squeeze it out even more than that. Keep losing my iPad. And there you go. Can you see what I'm talking about? That reflected light. I'll take and do a little bit more. This is burnt or ultramarine blue, gesso, touch of purple. And I see this everywhere in this. So I'm going to take and come right along this edge and just start scrubbing in soft. And it looks like it goes up here and it comes in and starts to shine down a little bit. A little more of the paint. And I'll do it again, but for now, just to kind of get that working and going. That's cool. A little bit up here. I'm kind of making up a little bit as I go to make it work. And that same kind of cast shadow, it kind of goes everywhere. Not cast shadow, I take that back. This is a reflected shadow. Well, I got it on my brush. Come over here. And a little bit more. And sit back a little bit. All right, that's the beginning. All right, we got that done. So let's come jump on that red pepper. And I'm going to use the same bristle brush. I kind of get hooked on using a particular brush for whatever reason. So the red pepper, take some red. Again, I want my paint thick. A touch of alizarin crimson, not a lot. Gesso to opaque it. And that's a pretty intense red. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see. And this is where you have to start getting the paint on thick so that it maintains its color. And that's gonna get some highlight there. Very cool. And there is some reflected light coming from the yellow pepper right there. I'll just kind of smush that out. And then let's look at the top of this. And that looks like it comes down a little bit right there. And thick, thick, thick. Again, I'll put a stem sticking out of there. This is the the difference here is when you'd have oil, you definitely have, it's what you see is what you get. You put the paint on a particular color, heaviness, and it stays. Acrylic's dry, darker. And I'm gonna leave that alone. And I'm gonna jump to the apple. I can use the same pile of red I got. I just want to change up the apple color a little bit. So I will grab some vivid lime green over here. Because it got dried out on me. It's okay. I'll mush it up. Get that mixed in with that red. And then let me grab some new vivid lime green because that's not working well. I don't know why that color always does that. Not always, but typically it's the first one to start turning the corner. I'm going to clean out my brush real quick. And this is the same water I've used now for about a month. It'll start to fade away before I get a chance to use it all. So let's grab some of the new vivid lime green. And do I want to use, let's try this brush real quick. And now I've got that. I'll grab some gesso to mix with that vivid lime green. It's so transparent that the gesso is really what opaques. Let's see how that comes out. Because it's definitely more yellow. That's better. Okay. I see a little bit getting up in there. Now again, I'm just going to come back and kind of feather that. Together. Yeah, that's fine. And then I've got that green back there, so I'll take that same pile, vivid lime green, grab a little bit more, grab some purple, a little more purple, a little more green, and then I got the shadowed green back here. And there's a little bit sticking. Looks like it's got some kind of disease. But now I'm going to grab this red that I mixed with the vivid lime green. A little bit of gesso. Yeah, that's a cool color. And that changes that from being not so close to the pepper. Come in here. There we go. And it looks like it comes over. Looks like I'm going to have to do another coat on that green. It just does not want to come out. But let's get the backside red. So if I take half the pile, stick it over here, grab some gesso or some purple, get a nice dark red, and a little darker than that, so I'll grab some of the black that I made on my brush and start. That's good. Get that kind of filled in. And I want to grab a touch of that black and just come in right here, a little more. And just kind of blend in real dark. I also want to do that with the pepper I did over here. So I got a little bit of black on my brush and other colors. Okay. And let's quickly, I don't want to take up your whole day. These grapes, I'm going to take my number 4 flat Sable. I am going to get some Alizarin crimson and purple. Maybe a touch of cad red. Let's see what that looks like here. And there's such translucence, and I'm going about middle stage, which I'm not, like, that means I'm not making highlights as much as I'm just getting the tonal value of the grape kind of put together. So let's take now and rinse that out of my brush, come down, grab some gesso, and I'm over in this pile. I'm going to add just a touch of blue and start bringing that highlight up. A little bit there, a little bit there, some there. Blend it. a little bit more of that on this one. Because that's going to be like the most dominant. That one and that one. All right. Now I got to mess with those green ones. Take a look here. So I'm going to grab my Vivid Lime Green again. Come back down here. I need to opaque the daylights out of this. So I'm going to mix about a 1/3, 2/3, 1/3 Gesso to 2/3 the Vivid Lime Green. I don't want to yellow it. I want it to be that green. So let's see how that comes out. I'm using the number 4 Sable. And my picture disappeared. All right. Let's get this on here. That's pretty opaque. Don't kill all the underneath stuff. That little one back there, don't touch it. That's in shadow. This one's like right up front. But notice how thick I'm putting this paint on. Top of this one's getting hit a little bit. Get that feathered over. Okay, much better. Well, I've got that opaque greenish color. I am going to just kind of tap in. I'm just going to use like what I've got. Make some highlights on that. I'm going to come in here too. And because I can't get that apple bright enough. And it will be just about white here when we finish up. Okay. Purple. Grapes. I'm going to do just that. Grab purple. Come over here. There's a lot of purple. That stuff run away quick. Take some of that Vivid Lime Green with the purple. Great color. And if I can do this without messing up my, get the front edge. There, there. There's one there, there, there. And then I'm going to squeeze that out, grab some gesso, come over to that pile. Just going to start adding in some sparkly bits. Before that runs away, run that out. Soften, smush, get rid of my line. Come back to that purple highlightish. This one needs to stick out a little bit. That one does. That one does. And this predominant one right here does. Get the paint out, feather that back. Now I can see clearly now. All right. Last thing we're going to do for today, before we have the final episode to do highlight. Actually, I want to come down to I had some purple mixed up with green. I'm going to add a little bit of purple to that mixture, brown, whatever mess I've got. And I'm going to come down here to the inside. Leave the center dark. And is that the same with the red pepper? No. But I will take some of the red, cad red over here, a little bit of black, and a real dark red. Get inside this. It doesn't need to be black. There we go. Can even add some of that over here. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to do one more thing on the straw here. Let's grab my number 4 Dynasty brush, flat one. Get it wet. Come down here to this pile I had mixed up for the bucket. I'm going to grab some burnt umber, some cad yellow. Too much cad yellow, it's okay. More burnt umber. More burnt umber. A touch of purple. There. That's the base I want. Now I will grab some gesso. There we go. And again, I'm going to put this on like we did last time, thin. And I see where we're starting to get some highlights. A little more gesso. And not as thin. I think I got a little bit too thin this time. Because I want this whole side here is going to be sparkly lit. So let's just get some pieces sticking out there so that looks lit. This down here is going to be in the light. It's okay if you go over some things. To end up adding a little more light to that. But I want it to, I clearly want to show that edge over there, because that's where our light sources come in that direction. And while I've got that color, I'm just going to take and loosely, I'm going to take that same color, because we've got this into this pole, and I'm going to have to turn my canvas for me to do this appropriately. Just to start indicating where my highlights are going to go. Don't want that edge left hard. And then I've got this. And yeah, that's just cool looking. Down here, we are going to have some grasses and stuff coming up in here. But I want this to be, I want to know what I'm doing when I come back in here. You can really start to see things taking shape at this point, I hope. Soft. Yeah, that's about all I want to do. I think there will be some highlight on top of that. All right, I hope you all can see where we're going with this. Next time, it's just going to be a matter of putting on some last highlights, making things, finding interesting things, brightening it up, putting stems in. I'll put a little bit of corn in there, but this is what you got to do with acrylic. I hope you're enjoying it, and I will see you next time. In another week, we'll get this one wrapped up and start something brand new. Thanks so much for joining, and please subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. Thanks.